In today's society, good parenting can often feel like swimming upstream, going against much of what culture tells you is the right way to do things. In Meck's latest series, Courageous Parenting, you'll discover how to effectively parent the next generation by looking at best practices that come straight from the Bible and how to have the courage to do it in today's culture. Whether you hope to be a parent one day, or you're in the throes of parenting, or even if you're looking back on your parenting years, this series will be one you don't want to miss.
Well, welcome to Meck's online campus. I know a lot of you have kids, but many of you don't. So how do you know if you're ready for kids? Well, somebody sent me a test. So first, let's see if you can, for example, stand the mess that a kid makes. Here's how to find out. Smear peanut butter onto the sofa and jelly onto the curtains. Hide a piece of raw chicken behind the TV and leave it there all summer. Stick your fingers into the flower bed and then rub them onto the walls. Spill milk on your pillows. Cover the stains with crayons. And then take your favorite book, your favorite picture, and your iPad. Destroy them all. Okay, now let's move on to your car and see if you're ready there. First off, obviously, buy a minivan. Then second, buy a chocolate ice cream cone and put it in the glove compartment. Then get a dime and wedge it into the window, DVD player, just the gear stick. It doesn't matter as long as it wedges. Then take a family-size package of chocolate cookies, mash them into the back seat. Then sprinkle Cheerios all over the floor. Smash them with your foot. Do this daily, or at least after every car wash. And then run a metal garden rake along both sides of your car. Now let's go on to feeding. See if you're ready there. This is going to take some skill. Get a cantaloupe and hollow it out. Make a small hole in the side. Suspend it from the ceiling and swing it from side to side. Then get some yogurt and try to spoon it into the swaying melon hole as it swings. Now here's where it gets tricky. You have to do that while pretending to be an airplane. You're still not done. Continue until half the yogurt is gone, then pour the other half into your lap. Do all of that, and you're ready for kids. Actually, there is one last thing to do to get ready. Find someone with kids. Find fault with their methods of discipline, their lack of patience, their appallingly low tolerance levels, and how they allow their children to run wild. Suggest ways they might improve their child's breastfeeding, their sleep habits, their toilet training, their table manners, and overall behavior, and then go home and enjoy your feeling of superiority, because it will be the last time you ever have that feeling if you have kids. Today, we're going to start a series on parenting, but not just on parenting in general, but the courage needed to parent. Courage you're going to need on the front end before you have them, the courage you're going to need during the years you have them, and even the courage you're going to need on the back end to stand by the choices that you've made that you knew were right, and the counsel that you'll be asked to give that you know might be counterintuitive or countercultural to people who ask you for it. In the weeks to come, we're going to break this down with conversations about the courage you're going to need for every age group, elementary, middle school, high school, ending on Mother's Day with a look at some of the most difficult courage parents need to have of all. Why are we highlighting courage? Well, because it's the most needed ingredient in today's world for parents to have, maybe more so than at any other time in the history of parenting. In fact, let me just give you 4 reasons why, kind of a quick cultural snapshot, 4 changing dynamics in our world that have made courage more essential than ever. First, there is the erosion of childhood. Or as sociologist Neil Postman once wrote, in having the secrets or access to the previously hidden fruit of adult information, the child is expelled from the garden of childhood. Postman is really worth lingering on here because he wrote this very provocative book several years ago that is now proving prescient. It was simply titled The Disappearance of Childhood. His thesis was that children were being robbed of their innocence and their naivete and their ability to even be a child. He contended that in our world, we ask children to embrace mature issues and mature themes and experiences and issues long before they're ready. Postman argued that the very idea of childhood, though, is that there is a time when a young person is sheltered from certain ideas and experiences and practices and expectations and knowledge. They're sheltered from adult secrets, particularly sexual ones, certain facets of life. Its mysteries, its contradictions, its tragedies, its violence are not considered suitable for children to know. Only as a child grows into adulthood are they revealed in ways that they can assimilate psychologically and emotionally and spiritually. But now that childhood has just been ripped from children. The language even of adults and children, including what they address in life, has become virtually the same. It is almost uncontested among sociologists that the behavior, the language, the attitudes, the desires, even the physical appearance of adults and children are becoming indistinguishable. This has led to a new and startling cultural trend, which is the tendency of children to grow older younger. As select peers grow older younger, the other children feel pressured to match them for the sake of popularity and for the sake of acceptance. And if they don't, then they're ostracized. One teacher that I read, she was in her 31st year of teaching at a suburban Detroit school, observed that the girls who are the victims of bullying or social rejection tend to be raised by parents who encourage them to be age appropriate. The mean girls, her language, the mean girls are, she says, 8 years old, but want to be 14, act like they're 14, and their parents play along with them being 14. Soon, wishing their children to fit in, the initially age-appropriate parents start to give in, escalating the downward spiral. Even the children on TV and movies, and I'm sure you've seen this, act like adults. They don't differ significantly in their interests, their language, their dress, their sexuality from the adults on the show, making the same, knowing wisecracks and tossing out the same sexual innuendos as adults would. Well, related to the disappearance of childhood is the rise of a second cultural dynamic, the rise of sexual fluidity among children. Now, that may be a new term for some of you, so let me see if I can unpack that a little bit. There was a recent Gallup poll that found that about 5.6% of all U.S. adults identify as LGBTQ. Further, the majority of LGBTQ Americans say they're actually bisexual. But get this, when you survey just Generation Z, the cohort collectively under the age of, say, 24, 25, 1 in 6 consider themselves LGBTQ. That's almost 20% of that entire generation. And again, they just surveyed the age groups 18 to 23 for this particular profile. But what is going on there? Well, Gallup, which ran the poll, said it's not so much a true shift in sexual orientation, but a new openness to all things sexual. This is a generation that has come of age in the era that has put such things in the mainstream. Such as in 2015 when the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, and you also had former Olympian turned reality TV star Bruce Jenner very publicly become Caitlyn Jenner, even landing on the cover of Vanity Fair. From that kind of cultural context, Generation Z has become sexually and relationally amorphous. Consider the influential statements by such outspoken young celebrities such as Kristen Stewart, Miley Cyrus, or Cara Delevingne. Stewart, when asked about her sexuality, said, "I think in 3 or 4 years, there are going to be a whole lot more people who don't think it's necessary to figure out if you're gay or straight. It's just like, do your thing." And for Miley Cyrus, "I don't relate to being boy or girl, and I don't have to have my partner relate to boy or girl. That's what I mean by sexually fluid. It's the refusal of either the homosexual or the heterosexual label, the male or the female label. The idea is that all labels are repressive. Sexuality should be set free of any and all restrictions and allowed to follow its desire moment by moment. Why? Because the greatest value is individual freedom." Which brings us to a third reason courage is so desperately needed by parents today: the digital revolution. While baby boomers can't remember a world without TV and millennials can't remember a world without computers, Gen Z doesn't know a world without constant, immediate, and convenient access to the World Wide Web. When Steve Jobs originally announced the iPhone, and he said it's just a little more than a combination of three projects: the iPod, a phone, and internet connectivity. That was it. Even he didn't know what had been unleashed. And make no mistake, the iPhone changed the world. In one of his books on American culture, Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman had an entire chapter that he called "What the Heck Happened in 2007?" Only he didn't say heck. He makes the case it was one of the most pivotal years in all of human history. And not just because that was the year the iPhone was released, but because of all that it set in motion and all that came into play in a simultaneous way. Beyond the iPhone, in 2007, Facebook left the campus and entered the wider world. Twitter was spun off. Google bought YouTube and launched Android. Amazon released the Kindle. Netflix started streaming videos. And the internet crossed 1 billion users worldwide, the tipping point to it becoming the fabric of our world, all in 2007. That's a new challenge. I raised 4 kids. And when that year broke, 2007, my oldest was 20. I mean, the digital world really didn't exist. But for her oldest daughter, my granddaughter, it's the wallpaper of her life. And it's changed the parenting dynamic in so many ways. For one thing, it means that they're able to be the most independent generation in all of human history. They're the first generation to have the ability to find whatever they're after without the help of intermediaries such as libraries, shops, teachers, or parents. They just Google it. This has made them more self-directed than any other generation before them, and it's also made them the most vulnerable. Never before has there been such a wide chasm between almost unlimited access to information and almost no access to wisdom. Well, then there is obviously the world of social media attached to this, which is not merely second nature to them, it is their primary nature. And because of the nature of social media, this means that no other generation is more shaped by other people's opinions and word of mouth, or by doing their own research, which means just sifting through vast amounts of information and misinformation online, but without any sense of, true north, right or wrong, good or bad, true or false, just whatever is most persuasive and most convincing. Well, one more reason for courage, the new post-Christian reality. There have only been 3 eras in relation to the Christian faith: pre-Christian, Christian, and then post-Christian. I think most of us have heard now about the rise of the nuns. The nuns are the religiously unaffiliated. When asked about the religion or faith on various surveys or polls, they don't answer Baptist or Catholic or Presbyterian or Anglican or any other defined faith. They just simply say, well, I'm nothing. They check the none, N-O-N-E box. When I first began my own personal research and writing about the nuns, they made up 1 out of about every 5 Americans, which made them the second largest religious group in the United States, second only to Catholics. Not only that, but they were the fastest growing religious group in the nation. Well, in 2021, the percentage of Americans who self-designated as atheist, agnostic, or as a nun rose to 29% of all U.S. adults. That's nearly 1 out of every 3, up 10 percentage points from when it had last been checked. Make no mistake, parents are now raising children in a post-Christian world. So what is a parent to do? Just kind of throw their hands up and give up? Give in to the cowardice? One father described his parenting world, and I just, you'll have to forgive me. I found this so discouraging and sad, but he was someone who kind of gave up. This is how he described it, his parenting world. He said, after ensuring that his 6-year-old daughter was on the family iPad, his 8 and 11-year-old sons were on the PlayStation, and his 2-year-old son was watching something on his iPhone. He said, for me, he said, that was a good morning's parenting. Because there hadn't been any arguments, and I had been able to read my papers in peace. So his thinking any other way of parenting just isn't realistic. And he said, and I quote, because the world has moved on. And he went on to say, since it's not always safe to let children venture outside where they might run or play or use their imagination, children simply have to spend more time in front of a screen. And he said, yeah, granted, they could go outside or engage in reading, but such an endeavor, and I quote, invariably involves parental supervision, and that is a limited resource. So technology comes to the rescue. Offering parents a way to occupy their children in ways that don't involve direct parental supervision. Or as one pediatrician said, it's time to stop arguing, over whether it's good or bad, and just accept it as part of a child's environment. Well, that's one way to parent. I would love to propose another way. Be informed, be involved, be in charge. The proper assumption with parenting is simple. Your children are immature and they need parental maturity. Children are not little adults, they are children, which means the parent has to be informed and involved and in charge. Now, here's what that means. Let's walk through those. First, be informed. To be informed is to know what is going on in your child's world. To be up to date, current, knowledgeable. You know what they're doing and you know who they're doing it with. You need to know what the lyrics are to a song before they streamed it. You need to know what that movie is going to say or reveal and show before they see it. You need to know what's in that book, blog, or article before they have access to reading it. You need to know about the sites they're wanting to visit before they are able to click onto it. You need to know who they're wanting to text and maybe even what they're wanting to text to them before they text it. You need to know what kind of game it is that they're wanting to play before they play it. You need to know what kind of friends they have and what kind of parents those friends have so that you know what they'll be exposed to when they go and visit that friend. So do you? I don't know that the average parent does because they don't think it's that big of a deal. Or they think that what they do know is sufficient. Or that they're already being careful. If you would ask them, I'm on top of all that stuff. But they're not being careful. And maybe you're not being careful. For example, there's one study that found that over 60% of all parents, 6 out of every 10, have never checked their child's devices, such as their smartphone, iPad, or gaming console. Never checked it. That's not being informed. The same study found that over 60% of parents have never checked their child's devices, also found that their children were spending, on average, 3.5 hours on their smartphones a day. The parents thought it wasn't even an hour. But in reality, when they checked, it was over 3.5 hours. Again, they weren't as informed as they thought. And let's be honest, another dynamic, and let me go there. For modern parenting, is that we just don't see things for what they are. We've lost our parental sensitivity. In other words, we have the raw data, we have the information, we know what our kids are seeing and viewing, but it doesn't register with us. Or we've gotten so numb to it that we think it's okay. I remember talking to one parent who proudly said, "I never let my kids watch anything but reruns of Friends." I thought to myself, you're saying that with pride? Did you know? And I remember that when they said that, the reason I had a heightened sensitivity was because I had just read a cultural analysis of Friends. And it found in this study that particular group of friends that I know we all love, but that group of friends had a lot of friends. In fact, after surveying all 236 episodes, it turns out that Monica, Phoebe, and Rachel, and Joey, and Ross, and Chandler had a total of 85 sexual partners. And those are just the ones that appeared on screen. Doesn't even count the ones alluded to, suggested, or implied. So that's first, be informed. Second, be involved. To be involved means that you're part of their world. You're not a spectator, you're a participant. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because, quite frankly, most parents do pretty good with this. They take involvement seriously. They're at the soccer games, they're coaching Little League, they're invested in their kids' schools, they're present and accounted for. It's the third one that gets a little tricky. Because not only are parents to be informed and involved, but as I mentioned, in charge. And to be in charge means that you're leading their world, you're creating their world, you're shaping their world. That's where courage is most needed. Let me read you a list, this just for fun, okay? Let me read you a list of potential rules that a parent could lay down for their child. And you just kind of be gauging what your visceral knee-jerk reaction is to this list. Ready? Limit their phone minutes, texts, and online hours. Don't let it take over their life. Don't ever let them see a movie you have not reviewed thoroughly on the front end, regardless of its rating. Don't let them sleep with their cell phone under their pillow or by their bed. The phone should be turned off and confiscated at bedtime. Have times of the day they have to turn their phone off and times when texting is not allowed, such as family vacations or family outings. Don't allow cell phones at the dinner table. Tell your kids not to share their passwords with their friends, not even their best friends. Keep all computer use in a public area. Don't allow TVs in their room. Don't let them be on TikTok, Whisper, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, unless they friend you as a parent. Don't let them join any social media prior to the stated age. Okay. Did hearing those and thinking of applying them make you break out into a cold sweat? Did you feel intimidated by them? Even fearful of the very idea of having them? It's not about really whether those rules are the right ones for you or not. The point is, do you see what I mean about courage and the need for it and being in charge? But that's what it means to be a parent, to be in charge. Which means, let me tell you who is not in charge. Your child is not in charge. What other kids do is not what's in charge. What other parents allow their kids to do, that's not what's in charge. What the dominant cultural values say kids should do, that's not in charge either. You, and only you, are in charge. But that's going to take courage, because where you need to be in charge is precisely where you are being challenged not to be. I recently read an article that quoted a child development expert. And when I get done, you may feel like that's an oxymoron, but a child development expert who said you shouldn't do anything with authority at all. You shouldn't do any disciplining at all. None. Let me give you some quotes from this article, because when I read it, at first I thought, is this like an SNL parody? Is this like, but this is legit. This person says, don't even send them to their rooms because that suppresses their emotions. The goal is to talk things through with your child, to understand them and why they did what they did, to make sure the child feels heard, not that they heard you. It's all about acknowledging their feelings. So, of course, don't spank. That borders on the criminal. But also, don't put them in timeout, don't ground them, don't take away privileges, and don't send them to their room. And this is the final line. Don't do anything that would establish your authority over them. You can't make this up. Translation of all that is let the child be in charge. Anybody be in charge but the parent. And that's insane. That's just nuts. So why are we so afraid to be the parent in charge? I've worked a lot with parents, and I've been one myself, obviously, and father of 4, grandfather now 15. I work, with parents all the time, and I think I've got my finger on one of the big reasons why this is so hard for us. We think we're going to screw it up with our kids. We think that if we don't do what everybody else is doing, we don't allow what everybody else is allowing, our kid will be the odd one, the unsuccessful one, the unpopular one, and of course, even worse, will be the bad guy. So many parents seem afraid to discipline, afraid to set rules and enforce them because they think it will make their kids turn away from them relationally. The child won't like them, the child will resent them, and the most important thing in a parent's psyche, even if they never verbalize it, but it's for their child to like them. So they're not firm, and they give in left and right, and they tiptoe around issues and behaviors and hoping that it will keep the relationship a close and a loving one. It's as if the child's potential reaction has their parents held emotionally hostage. Oh, please let me see if I can tell you something. I mean, take it or leave it, but let me just share it. Your job as a parent is not for your child to like you. Your job as a parent is for them to always respect you. Let me say that again. Your job as a parent is not for them to always like you. It's for them to always respect you. And that respect is what lays the foundation for a lifelong loving liking relationship. Because without it, you don't have peace, you have conflict. And when there's not respect, there's not that kind of healthy relationship. And this is true in the most important area of all, which is their spiritual life. And it's the most important area of your child's life. And believing that takes a lot of courage today, too. There was a recent survey, just came out, Pew Research Center, and it was asking parents, okay, so what concerns you the most? And the number one thing on parents' minds was mental health. 40% of parents said that they were extremely or very worried about their child struggling with anxiety or depression. Another 36% were somewhat concerned. So you've got 3 out of every 4 parents with mental health on their parenting radar in relation to their child. Rounding out the top 5 of things that were top concerns were bullying, being kidnapped or abducted, getting beaten up or attacked, and having problems with drugs or alcohol. So what was missing on that list? Anything at all to do with God. In fact, the issue that parents cared about the least, only 17%, was that their child share their faith, that their faith is passed on successfully to their child. That just was barely a blip on the screen. Now, I want to play that out. I know that not all of you would consider yourselves Christ followers, but let me say a word to those of you who would. This would be saying that you desperately want your child to be a Boy Scout during this nanosecond of life on earth, but you don't care if they spend their eternity in hell. Let's just put it bluntly. I understand parents being concerned over mental health and wanting their child to experience financial security and hoping that they'll be honest in their dealings with others. But if you're a Christ follower and you truly believe Jesus was who he said he was, and that heaven and hell are real and that real people go to one or the other, then nothing matters more than passing on your faith to your child. And rumor has it, it might just help out with some of your other concerns like mental health. Here's what you need to settle in the deepest part of who you are as a parent when it comes to your child and faith. Is your faith a matter of personal taste or transcendent truth? If it's just your taste, then it's not different than a favorite color, the food you like to eat, the kind of music that you enjoy listening to, whether you're a beach person or a mountain person, whether you like football or basketball better. It's all preference. You like Jesus, someone else likes Buddha, another gets into Muhammad. It's just no big deal. It's just taste. But if it's not about taste, but about truth, then everything changes, doesn't it? Then it all becomes electric. If it's about truth, then you're battling for your child's very soul. It's about right and wrong and good and evil and heaven and hell. It's about where they stand before a living God and what will happen when they stand before him and give an account of their one and only life. It's about where they're going to be spending eternity. So which is it for you? Taste or truth? If it's just taste, well, it's no big deal. Lots more important parenting things you can put on your plate. But if it's about truth, if it's about reality, if there really is a God on the loose who has made himself ultimately known through Jesus, and it is only through Jesus that we can be in a saving relationship with God, then this becomes the most important investment and responsibility of all. There's nothing else in the parenting world that even comes close to your child and faith. Let me close by reading you some of the most important parenting advice that has ever been given from the Bible. It comes from Moses, one of the most famous personalities in all of biblical history, a man who was used by God in phenomenal ways. Toward the end of his life, as the people of Israel were getting ready to enter the famed promised land, he gathered them all together and gave them his final words, the culmination of his wisdom, one last life lesson, what God had most impressed on his spirit as they would go forward in history. And here's what he wanted to talk to them about. He wanted to talk to them about the importance of passing faith on to their kids. Out of everything he could have talked about, it was that. Let me read his words. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your foreheads, write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. In these words, Moses lays out one of the most important parenting principles there is, that when it comes to faith and the home, faith in your children, you've got to be intentional. This is number one on the agenda. To use Moses' language, you have to impress this on your children. The word impress is from a Hebrew word that means sharp. The idea is that when it comes to parenting our children spiritually, we're to be doing it in a way that drives it down deep into their soul. It should be sharp like a knife, penetrating, going deep. So you, as a parent, not only have to be the one taking responsibility for your child's spiritual formation, you've got to be doing it in the most intentionally penetrating, permeating way you can imagine. Because we live in a day where there is the disappearance of childhood, a digital revolution, a rise in sexual fluidity, and a decisively post-Christian world, which means parents will have to be informed, involved, and in charge. And that, above all things, will take courage. Well, let me pray for us. Father, as we start this series on courageous parenting, I pray for people who don't have kids yet, who do, who are looking back on it. This series is going to be for all of us, and I hope we'll all dial in, because what we're going to be talking about is going to be so important. But I just pray for parents right now who are facing so much and feel so overwhelmed. And I just pray that they would look to you, have confidence in what you would say to them, and no matter how much it seems like they're swimming upstream, that they would have the courage to do what they know is right and best for their child, which often is not what the world is saying is right and best. So I pray for their courage and their fortitude. I pray for their commitment to impress all of this on their children. And I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.